Hello, Apex Scholars. Welcome back. We are in week 12 of Apex 1000 1010. I do not have any announcements for you today, so we're going to jump right into our lesson, and our lesson today is on diversity. The cause of the problem is oppression. This term applies to those groups that are either subtly or unsubtly viewed as lesser in society. Any individual that suffers can or be mistreated, so experience prejudice, but oppression refers to how society treats a certain group of people. Ism. So these are types of oppression. So we have racism, sexism, ageism, and there's also different isms. These are just some examples. In academics, isms apply to types of groups that people are oppressed and generally mistreated as a group of people. So one you can think of as sexism can be when people say like a girl. So you act like a girl, you run like a girl, and saying things like a girl, meaning that being a girl or a woman, there's something wrong with that. So, like I said, this is one example how oppressive views in society can discourage or harm people that belong to a certain group. How does oppression work? So often in society there are normal ways, quote unquote, to be. So we have normal religions, normal gender roles, normal worldviews. And when you kind of don't fit into that norm is when oppression may come about. How does oppression work? So look at the situation of someone who's a feminist. So someone who believes that we live in an unjust and male-dominated world. Often feminists are only accepted if they say nothing, so stick to the norm of saying nothing and just let the world go how it's running. And if you speak out, then you are in and you're not you are not in, you are out. So that's kind of how oppression works when you may look a little different or you're disagreeing with certain views of how the world or society views something. So now we're going to talk a little bit about prejudice. So prejudging people. When you assume, so assumptions, a thing that is accepted or is true or certain is certain to happen without proof. So oftentimes that is when you hear someone assuming things, it's like, oh, I assumed. So you're just kind of going off of what you think and have no proof or no facts to back up that idea or what you're thinking. Judgment, the ability to consider decisions or come to a sensible conclusion. So the word stereotype is a simplified standard conception or idea invested with offensive meaning held in common by members of a group. So most of us have heard of the word stereotype, and you can kind of think of some of those stereotypes that you heard about a certain group of people. So like I said, think about some of those stereotypes you've heard. And also, just think to yourself, do you think these stereotypes can be hurtful or damaging to a certain group of people? Hopefully you're all thinking, yes, these stereotypes can be hurtful, because when we talk about prejudice and you're thinking about a certain group of people has this negative stereotype, or even if it's positive sometimes, that is still that stereotype that is maybe true for some people in the group, but not all. But they're making the stereotype true for everyone in a certain group. In social justice is the fair and just relation between social groups, and those who advocate for social justice just want to eliminate and reduce oppression. If any of you have seen this picture before, it kind of goes to the difference of equality and equity. I know growing up in school, we always kind of talked about equality, and we never really touched on equity. And if you see in this picture, sometimes you kind of need that, you need equity more so over equality. So when you see the equality picture, everyone is getting the same thing. So everyone has a box to try to see the game. But in the equity picture, you can see that the first person does not need a box because they can still see over the fence and watch the game. As far as the shorter person needs two boxes because the one box, they still have that one box and still cannot see the game. So when the first person hands over their box, so now everybody can see the game. So that is equity, making sure that everyone has what they need to move on and progress. So not all the time do we all need the same thing. Sometimes some of us need a little bit more than others. The differences you may encounter in college and in life. So this might be age. So when you're working at a job, or even when you're in college, everyone is probably not going to be the same age. So when I was in undergrad, I had some people who were older than me, and maybe they are getting their second degree or starting to get their first degree. And although that I might have been 19, 20 when I was in classes with them, they have a whole different life experience because they might have kids my age and things like that. But you're not going to go to college with everyone who is the same age as you. Economic status. So you might have someone who we all have just different economic status. Some people grew up with in upper class neighborhoods and upper class families, while some of us didn't. We have different religions in college and also in work, gender identities, social orientation, learning challenges, and physical challenges that we all encounter. Microaggressions. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with microaggressions, but microaggressions are subtle act of oppression, and sometimes people know that they're doing the microaggressions, and sometimes people have no idea of what they're saying is a microaggression. So these are acts in the society or individual acts from people. And just try to think of some examples of what you can think of a microaggression, or if anyone has said a microaggression to you. And if you can't think of anything, I have some examples on this slide. So this first one would say, would you love to go back to your country? And then she said, I am in my country. No homo will be a microaggression. Oreos are a type of cookie, not a type of person. I don't break the law, I study it. Nudity does not liberate me, and I do not need saving. This is my gay best friend. So introducing someone saying this is my gay best friend, you can just say this is my best friend. You are pretty for an African girl. That is not a compliment. You have a mental disability. You seem perfectly normal to me. That is not a compliment either. Oh, same one. And this person to say, I'm honoring you. So I know when I was at Eastern, we had a lot of signs and flyers come up around Halloween, basically telling people not to dress up as other people's race or ethnicity. So this person is dressed up as a Native American and said, I'm honoring you, which he is not. You didn't sound Asian on the phone. Yes, this is my real hair and you cannot touch it. Are you a man or a woman? I totally forgot you were gay when we were playing ball earlier. So those are just some of the microaggressions that you may hear and you may encounter. So if you find yourself saying any of those, please do not say any of those. And you can look up more. If you look up microaggressions, there will be lists of things that you should not say, and just dive a little bit deeper of what that actually means. So you're making sure that you're being inclusive and not saying anything that's going to harm someone. So moving on, we all have multiple parts of our identities. So no one can just describe with only one part. So we're not all just human beings. We all have different uniqueness about us. So, for example, I am a female. I'm an African American female. I what's another example? I'm able-bodied. So things like those, we all have different abilities, and different identities that we all identify with. What are some examples of identity-based oppression that you can think of? And once again, if you can't think of anything, I have some examples. So race and ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, a disability, social economic status, politics, any things like that, and there's a lot more that people you can be oppressed with. Also, saying things such as I'm colorblind, we are all just human, because saying the first one of saying that you are colorblind means that you don't, and this is what the young lady on the right, she has a paper, a board, and says, I don't see color means you don't see me. So just making sure that you're not saying things like that, because we all can tell that we are all different colors and different races, and that's okay, that we are all different. And not trying to downplay any of those things. So going on to privilege, and I think a lot of students don't really realize, and I like doing this activity, there's activity in person that we usually do, and you can kind of see it here on the screen where everyone is given a piece of paper, and then I have some students sit in the back of the class, some students are sitting right in front of a class, and then some of the students are given pieces of paper to throw into a trash can. So obviously, it is easier for the student who is sitting right in front of the trash can to make the basket and make it their paper into the basket than someone who is sitting all across the classroom and trying to make it into the basket. So that's when we talk about privilege and what you can have when it comes to privilege, and when you're sitting. Some people have things that maybe a little bit easier, that comes a little bit easier for them, but all in all, we all do have privileges, and we just have to kind of sit back and realize, and we do an activity like that in class too, where I kind of go and show the students that we all have privilege. So privilege, some identities that are privileged in society, it can be the people who get higher wages. So sometimes, often, it is men that get paid higher than women. Who gets hired often? I've also heard that sometimes if people have too much of an ethnic name, they feel that they may need to change their name on their resume. Well, not change their name in the resume, but they might have like their first initial on their resume instead of their full name, so they can get hired at just an interview more often. Some certain people or identities get respected more in politics, and then some identities just get respected more in life. So what does this do to your opportunity? So obviously, if you have a greater privilege and you're always at the top, then you're going to rise a lot quicker than some other people who may not have these privileges. And when you're thinking about privileges, just think, because I know I said in one of the slides that I'm able-bodied. We do have some students who have disabilities and physical disabilities. So I think a lot of students, when they're thinking about being privileged, they might say, oh, I'm a female, I'm a minority, I have no privilege. But if you are able-bodied, and also just being a citizen of the United States of America. Last year, I went to Jamaica, and just speaking to some of those, the residents of Jamaica, of how they can't get passports. It's hard for them to travel outside of Jamaica, and us as U.S. citizens, it's a little bit easier for us to grab a passport and go anywhere around the world that we want to go. So just think about those privileges that we all have in society, and then just helping all others that maybe not have the privileges that we have. So I hope you enjoyed the lesson today, and I hope to talk to you all next week. I hope you all have a great week. Thank you.